Hello, Legionnaires, and welcome to some Rando RPG Livestream. That's right, it is now time to sit down on the virtual couch where we will talk, rant, and joke about tabletop role-playing games. If we're lucky, we'll learn a thing or two, and of course, we will clown those unwashed and unkempt degenerates in this hobby who need to be pushed back into their noxious troglodyte caves. I hope you're ready, so let's get going. Hello, thank you all for joining me on some Rando RPG live stream. I am John Maxley Auschlow, your facilitator and host for tonight's discussion on the Game Master's Journey. I just realized that introduction that I've been using for a while now might not fit the format of this show anymore. Let's push them back in their noxious troglodyte caves. But we're actually trying to be nice and beneficial for everybody, provide experiences for everybody out there. I hate them all. I might have to update that at some point. But anyway, before I introduce the panelists and start the discussion, let's knock out these announcements. You know how that goes. First and foremost, I'm truly grateful that you are joining us for tonight's live stream discussion, or VOD, if you're watching this at a later date. Hope you enjoy the conversation that we're about to have tonight. The only ways to watch this full live stream are to, well, watch it now, live as it's happening, or be a Legion of Myth YouTube member after the live stream ends. The full live stream remains available only to YouTube members, while the 4 primary segments will be chopped into videos for the public that don't go out for a month. You're going to have to wait a month after this live stream airs. So check that out when those pop. If you're not a member, thank you for talking about memberships. Thank you very much, Crafting Gamer. He gifted membership to whom? Oh, Carmine Willie Pepe. I can't even say that name. You're from now on, you're CWP. But there you go. Congratulations on your gifted sub. Now you can watch this live stream after the fact in case you're not here the entire time. So what do we do on some Rando RPG live stream? Primarily, we discuss tabletop role-playing games, systems, people, and culture with an emphasis on individual experiences, desires, and expectations. In tonight's 4 segments on the Game Master's Journey, we hope to provide ideas, suggestions, and food for thought for your tabletop RPG sessions. Yes, violence solves everything. I changed it from a week to a month. Yes, that's exactly what I did. So I guess that is a change. That's why I have it in the announcements. So please consider supporting Legion of Myth through the links in the live stream's description. YouTube takes 30%. Twitch takes 50% of your hard-earned money, while Rumble, PayPal, Streamlabs, and Ko-Fi take between 0 and 5%. Now, with that said, Rumble rants and Super Chats, how do they work on some Rando RPG live stream? I don't know if I should do this with a big thing in the way there. Whatever. Less than $20, I'll read at the end of the segment. $20 or more, I'll interrupt the conversation, read your chat immediately. However, side note, if you ask a question, we'll get to the question at the end of the segment. $50 or more, I will take a drink in your name, although my shot glass was filled with something weird when I got to the desk today, so I didn't know what it was, and I wasn't going to put it in my mouth, so I need a different shot glass. But I'll take a drink in your name, and you can force the panel to answer any tabletop RPG gaming-related question of your choice right then and there. And yes, for those who have been bugging me about this, it's back. If we make $100 or more in Super Chats or Rumble Rants, there'll be a $25 gift card giveaway to either Palladium Books or Drive Thru RPG at the end of the live stream. What's with all that noise? Legion of Myth YouTube members, as well as tonight's Super Chatters and Rumble Ranters, have the opportunity to win, and you must be watching at the time of the giveaway to win a gift card, else it rolls over to the next giveaway. And I don't care if 100% of people complain about that, because I do get a lot of complaints about that. You should pick a new person. I am not going to do that. It is going to roll over to the next episode. Here we go. Talking about giveaways. Here, Have Max's Crap giveaway is back on with War Gods of Egyptus, Dungeons & Dragons 3rd Edition, and a couple of Battletech books. Find out more on the Legion of Myth Discord or in the community tab of this Legion of Myth YouTube channel. Yay, I get to finally click another thing. There we go. The charity we support is the Wounded Warrior Project, a national nonpartisan organization whose mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors. Please refer to the live stream's description for the link to where you can make your hopefully tax-deductible donation. As a reminder, there is a new rule. This is probably the last time I'm reading this one. I think you guys have got it figured out by now. New rule that moderators will enforce during the live streams, and that is do not directly insult or personally attack any host or any commenter, else you will be timed out and maybe even banned. Just don't do it. Take your personal beefs to your own venues and channels, or you can simply get the heck out of here. And as always, like, subscribe, share. I cannot appreciate you or thank you enough for being here when you could be doing anything else on a Friday evening. Like, I don't know, going to a high school football game. Wait, football season's not on, but we'll doing something else, but don't do that. Stay here. So please like the video, subscribe to all the panelists' channel, and we'll get to those in just a moment. Thank you for your time and support. And with all that finally out of the way, let's introduce our guests. Let's start with GM Cody. Who are you, sir? What content or products do you create, and what is your tabletop RPG experience?
Howdy. Thanks for having me again. I am GM Cody. I think most people here know me. I have a tiny little YouTube channel where I talk about all the role-playing games and war games and games that I loved growing up. And I do reviews. Sometimes I just talk about heartfelt things, just stuff that comes off the top of my head. And sometimes I actually play actual games on the channel. So you get tuned in for that. So if you're interested in any of that, go check it out. GM Cody.
All right. And by the way, they're not there now, but I'll get the guys' links in the description of the video here as I have time throughout this live stream. So, but if you're watching it later, they're there. And of course, then we have the next guy. It says on the screen there, Matt Malakian. All right. Anyway, who are you? What content products do you create? And what is your tabletop RPG experience?
Name's Malachi, vlogging right now, doing a commentary on the Fallout series as I watch every episode. And I just put up my first post on the Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland RPG.
Okay. And I cannot find your YouTube channel yet again. It never wants to come up. It's Malachi of the OSR, right?
Yeah. Should be.
You don't exist.
I knew something was up.
I probably have you blocked for some reason. You know, it's what I do.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Yep, I can't find you. So only GM Cody's going up there for now. If you can get me a link at some point, you don't have to rush it, but get me a link at some point, and I'll put it in there at that time. All right. So as we talked about, tonight's 4-part episode is going to be on the Game Master's Journey. Now, I had a list of 24 questions that were available for this. GM Cody was kind enough to pick 8 of them that we'll discuss, 2 per segment. So that means we're not covering everything. We're not covering the entirety, the gamut, the depth and width of everything that happens to Game Masters. We're covering a segment today, and we could always come back and cover more later. Thank you, Full Metal Dragon and Crafty Matt, for your memberships as well. Appreciate that. So let's start off with our first segment, which is going to be on challenges and obstacles. And since it is his topic, we'll let Cody start with this first question. So let's start right out of the gate with, what are common challenges a new game master may face, and how can he overcome them?
Sure. So I think the first challenge any new game master, most game masters are going to have, is just the confidence to do it. Most people that I see that are even thinking about doing it are just really afraid to do it, you know, and it's oftentimes really hard to just talk people to go onto the other side of the table. So I think that's probably the biggest hurdle for people, is just do it. Right. I know that sounds like a cop-out answer, but it really is. Like, I find that a lot of people just don't have the confidence to do it. But in reality, I find that actually being a game master is, if you don't have any confidence, it's going to help you build up a lot of confidence. And hey, you're doing it probably with a group of friends, you know, so that's really going to help your confidence and boost your morale a little bit. So I think that's number one, the first big hurdle. The other big hurdle is, I think people are really, they get really mixed up or really twirled up about, you know, I don't have any good ideas, right? Like I can't, you know, I don't have any good, you know, plots and adventures and NPCs, and I can't do all the voices, and they get wrapped up in all this stuff. And really, I'm here to tell you folks, and I think, you know, it's no secret that being a GM is just ripping off other people anyways. So don't worry about it. Like, none of us are original. None of us, I'm very few of us are like original or do anything really that creative. Like, you don't have to be. It can be the most simple plot ever with the most simple ideas, but you can bring that alive and do it well if you do it well, right? And doing it well, by the way, you're not gonna do a good job probably on your first try, right? Like, I rarely see like a GM get in there the first time and really do a good job. So don't worry about that. Just do your best. You know, don't over prepare, which we're going to talk about later. I'm not going to go too far into that, but you know, and just give it your best shot, and just sit in the seat and just effing do it, right? That's my best advice to the new GM. And also, I would say, look at what other people do, especially with YouTube now. And you know, I'd recommend be a player for a while, right? And see what other GMs do, so you can so you
Cody
can
just
know.
ruined like 7 of my follow-up questions.
Oh, whoops. Sorry.
No. That's great. That's great. That just means we're on the same wavelength there.
I
That's what Malachi's like. I got nothing now. No, that's it. So the lack of ideas. I know that you provided the how to get around that with rip off things. I even put up Lord Mateus's comment there, and it's true. Like, one of the reasons I started being a dungeon master way back in the late '80s, early '90s was because, you know what, I could do better than what he did. I can take that adventure, that story, those concepts that he's doing to do a better job. Was I right? Maybe not. but that's what it was. And it's like, and then I was piggybacking on them, like, oh, I read this novel that was so great, and I want to incorporate. Obviously, you don't want to copy a novel because the players will never conform to it anyway. But you can throw those concepts out there. So yeah, there's movies, novels, et cetera, et cetera. Absolutely, you can do that. And Violence, I agree with your Rumble comment there. Don't. Wait a minute. Are you talking about us? What the hell? No. He says, don't pay too much attention to all the advice thrown out online, and don't put your game online if you're not confident, because that's when the naughty word, somebody we won't name online, will destroy you and your confidence fast if you're new. And we know who he's talking about. There's a guy out there who, likes to critique game sessions and doesn't really know what he's talking about. But so the follow-up that I have for you, I'm going to take a different tone, Cody, for a moment. You talk about the confidence. Did you mention like how, other than, and this may just be the simple answer, other than just do it, how to gain that confidence? Or do you think it just pretty much comes from, hey, got to throw yourself in the fire?
Yeah, some people already have that confidence, right? Some people are just good around people. Some people are just a natural leader. And usually those are the first guys that are the GM in the group, right? They're the leader of the group, and they're like, hey, we're going to play this game. It's called Dungeons and Dragons. So some people already have that confidence, but a lot of people, especially in this hobby, do not initially. And yeah, I think that just comes from doing it, right? I know that sounds like a cop-out answer, but it really isn't. Like, I think that's how you build confidence. If you don't already have it, you have to do it to gain the confidence to do it, right? And I will say, another way to do it is you could do, if you feel intimidated about doing your whole group, maybe just do a one-on-one session with somebody that's closer friend in the group. Be like, hey man, I'm not quite like up to snuff on this. Like, do you mind if I just run you through like a solo adventure so I can kind of build up my confidence, and you can kind of critique me and tell me if I'm doing things wrong or whatever. Maybe even the GM, if you have a regular GM in the group, maybe ask him to do just a one-on-one session, and he can be like, hey man, here's some liner notes about, some, and to be honest, like, that's another thing I would say is, don't be afraid, if you have an experienced group, to take some criticism from the experienced players and GMs in the group. I always do that. Like, after a game, like if somebody else is running a game, and especially if they're a newer or new GM, I'm like, hey dude, if you want me to, I'll tell you like some what you did wrong or right or whatever. And I'm no expert, by the way. I don't think any of us are. I'm not saying that I'm the.
But we have experience.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years though, so I do know a little bit about doing it, and so I don't mind giving pointers to people. I love seeing people become game masters, and I think everybody needs to step into that seat at some point or another in their gaming life, even
for no other reason to learn how to herd cats.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, just to see how hard it really is, because it's not an easy task at all. It's not an easy thing to do, and I think a lot of players take it for granted what the GM does, and I think it's really good for them to step in the shoes of the GM and see what they actually do and what they have to go through week after week, right?
So to piggyback on top of that, I was going to ask you a different follow-up at first, but I think this one fits in perfectly. How can those experienced GMs who are now players become obstacles to a new game master?
Repeat the question. Sorry.
So how can experienced game masters who are now your players, or the new Dungeon Masters players, become obstacles to that new game master?
They absolutely can. I see some game masters that are really fixed in their ways, which again is something that I wanted to bring up later, but I'll bring it up now. Is I think another mark of a good game master is to grow and know that you're not the best, and to learn things and and adapt and change, right, your style. Now, if you're fully comfortable in what you do and your players are happy, have at it. But I think anything you do, it's always a learning experience. You're never the master. You're always the learner. And as long as you have that mindset as a player, game master, whatever you do, you're going to be better for it. So I have ran into people that are game masters or players that think they are the best, right? Or that their style is the epitome of what they do. And I'm not speaking about certain people, by the way, but it does come to mind.
Yeah, I got you.
But and those people will be like, oh man, you had a little bit too long narration there, like they just rip everything apart of what that person is doing. And what you're doing is you're trying to force them into your style of being a game master. And that's another important part, is everybody has a different style, and once you find, it's kind of like playing the guitar, like when you first learn to play the guitar, everybody sounds the same. They sound awful and they sound stagnant and there's no style, there's no flow to it. But once you've been playing for a while and you learn some things and you copy some people, then you gain a style. You start gaining a style, right? And it's your unique mark on that instrument. And it's the same as being a game master, right? And that's going to come from time, probably. And how much time is going to depend on the person, like it does with everything. There's no hard, fast rule with that. It's just how fast you adapt and how fast you adapt that, right? But I think that's an important thing for every new game master to know also, is that there are bad ways to do it, but there is no wrong way to do it, if that makes any sense.
Yep, no, it does.
Yeah. So, I think that's really important to note, that like, just because you do something different than what you've seen doesn't mean that that's a bad thing necessarily. Right. And that's just part of your style. And maybe, if everybody's enjoying that and it is a good thing and it doesn't stop the flow of the game, there's a number of reasons why it would be bad. Then that's just part of your style. And that's your unique personality as being a game master, your voice. Right. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I have seen, like I said, veteran game masters and players that really stifled new players or new game masters. We were talking about new players, I think, last time, and how like the veteran players can stifle a new player. Well, the same thing can happen with game masters. And I've seen it happen before, where they try to force them to be more like they are instead of letting them be themselves.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Malachi, we're going to switch on over to you here. Again, going back to the primary question, what are common challenges new game masters face and how can they overcome them?
Well, I mean, Cody stole most of my thunder there, but I will say,
maybe you guys need to coordinate better so you have different answers. I don't know.
I got to figure something out. But the books, I think that's going to be one of the big hurdles for a new GM, is the rules. You are going to think you got to know all the rules. You don't have to know all the rules. You don't have to have that book memorized. Know where the stuff is, so if you have to, you can find it quick. And if it takes more than, I'm going to say 5 minutes, you have to make a decision, move the game forward, look it up after the game. Don't slow down your game to get things perfect. You're going to make mistakes. Worry about it after session.
Okay. So, where did I see the comment? Oh, it's right there. It's the last one. I actually had a follow-up question that's related a little bit to this. What are the challenges that come up with planning, coordinating, and scheduling the game? The so-called herding the cats, especially for a new dungeon master.
Well, scheduling-wise and stuff, your first party, your first group of players, keep it small. Try to go between 4 and 6. Don't go too many. It's going to be easier for you to get your schedules in line. If there's any kind of personality clashes, you won't have that many, or they won't be as pronounced if you have a smaller group.
If you run into a situation, you maybe have, and this is for both of you, if you run into a situation where a game was going along, the players have been playing for 6 months, a year, 2 years, I don't know, however long your campaigns tend to go, kind of started to die out, maybe over something we'll talk about later, like GM burnout or something, but somebody else steps up. Let's just arbitrarily, for the sake of argument, say it's you. And like, hey, I can run this game for a while he's out, and then only like half the players all of a sudden have time for it. Or I've run into a situation where I've been in groups where one person's game mastering, another person game masters, and then as soon as that game ends, like, you know what, I've always wanted to take up knitting, so I think my Wednesdays are busy now. You know, things like that.
I've definitely ran into that. It's not always, the game master, maybe the players, or it's hard to tell sometimes what's going on through somebody's mind. I mean, maybe it is the game master. I mean, I personally have had that happen with me, right? But usually I'm pretty honest. I'm just blunt with people. I used to beat around the bush when I was younger, but nowadays I'm just like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it, dude. Like, it's nothing. Yeah. It's not you, it's me, right?
Are we breaking up?
But I mean, I mean, nowadays, like as an adult, time is short. If you're not enjoying it, just let me know and let's change things up, you know, because we're here to share these few hours and have fun. And there's very few hours to share in a week when you're an adult and have family and kids and a wife and a job and all this shit. So like if we're not having fun, I tell my players straight out, like if something is going on and you're not liking the game, let's fucking change it, because I don't want this to be unfun for everybody.
Right.
So if that is going on, like if I see players dipping out, I'm like, hey, what's the deal, guys? Are you guys not, like, be honest, be straight with me, just like I am with everybody else. Like, are you guys not enjoying the game? You not like the game system? Are you not liking the way I'm taking it? Or are you not liking me? You want me to take a break? Because I will. Like, somebody else can step up, So that's the first thing I'll address is I just want everybody to be blunt and honest and open. I think that's an important thing in a group is everybody needs to be pretty honest with each other. Don't be mean.
Yeah.
But, be honest. A lot of people beat around the bush, because I always say after my games, did you guys have fun? And of course, everybody's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, really, did you have fun?
On Tuesday, they're like, man, do you believe he did that thing? Like, but you told him you had fun.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Like I like having feedback and criticism. So, if players have feedback for me, I want it. Please give it to me because I want to grow and get better as a GM. And I want to be better for the group I'm running the game for. Mm-hmm. Right. I don't know.
It's funny you say that, because I have an anecdotal story to that. When I was in Germany, the Dungeons and Dragons game flipped from 3rd edition to 2nd edition to 5th edition. And in that process there, we were talking about maybe doing a different game, having a different game master, whatever. And I was really hyping these guys up for Mutant Gen Lab Alpha. So I was setting up the campaign, or how I wanted to do it. It was really just going to be the campaign in the book, but like how I wanted to put it together, how preparing everything for a few weeks, and then just as I was getting ready, like, hey, so next week we're going to make characters too. We're like, yeah, I never really wanted to play this anyway. Could you have told me that weeks ago? And then we had to scramble to figure out what we were going to do next, and ended up being the 5e game. But I'm not going to be butthurt if you're not interested. I get it. Just tell me you're not interested. Don't be like, yeah, that sounds fun. That sounds fun. I was never interested in playing that game.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, just tell me if you're not interested, because you're just wasting everybody's fucking time.
Right.
If you're not being honest, just be honest. I think that's something for everybody to learn, player, GM, whatever. You need to be honest with each other, because I've seen that way too many times where half the group is just tuning out or not, like they're showing up late or not showing up at all. And it's like, okay, what's going on? Like, do you guys enjoy this or not? Just tell me, right? Like, just be honest here so we can change things and make this fun and enjoyable. That's what this is supposed to be.
And one of the worst things for a GM, when the player has an issue, leaves the game and then says what the issue is.
Yeah. Can't fix something you don't know.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I wasn't going to have another follow-up. I was going to move on, but it was mentioned in chat, and I've got it written here. Actually, I'll let him ask the question. I won't use mine. It says, my favorite is when the VTT doesn't do what the tech guy expects. So you have 20 minutes about how the VTT should work. Don't use VTTs anymore. So my note actually says testing technology in AV prior to the fact. Yeah. A lot of times, especially now, we're not just, okay, I guess we are. For new game masters, they've got a lot of things. A lot of people don't understand. For those of us who've been doing it for a long time, it's easy. We just understand things kind of fall into place. That doesn't mean we're perfect. It just means we understand that things need to fall in place. For somebody who's new, who's trying to be, okay, I got to remember my NPCs. I got to remember the adventure. I got to bring my books. I got to remember what those characters do. I've got to get my maps ready, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, where am I in, what do they call it? My handouts or whatever you're doing. Oh, crap, miniatures for those of you who do that stuff. testing technology, in terms of like a VTT or your foundries or just Discord can be a pain in the butt. And like one of the rules I have here for even doing these live streams is I like people to log in or join 30 minutes prior, especially if they've never done this before, so we can test anything out. But that's because I have experience doing this. For a new game master, all of a sudden he's starting his game, he's in his mode, he's getting ready to go, and the technology's not working right, and he's got to think of something else. That was a long-winded comment there because I kind of wanted to ask you guys, like, how can they get around that? But I think the simple answer is just like schedule that stuff in beforehand and know about it. But quickly, what can you guys see as a technological issue they can have and how to fix it?
Well, yeah, if you're running into technological issues, especially nowadays at the table, I've seen, I use it sometimes, a laptop at the table for notes or maps and stuff. I do that a lot nowadays. And I've had it happen before, the laptop dies or it's not working or I didn't load the map on there or whatever. And guess what? We're going to get into this later, but I'll bring it up now very briefly, is improvise. One of the key things you need to know as a GM, DM, whatever you want to call it, referee, you need to learn how to improvise and make shit up on the fly. That's going to be your most important tool. And you need to get good at that really quick. So when stuff goes awry, plan B, I'm improvising, right? So if I didn't have a map, well, guess what? Now I'm drawing the map as we go back behind the DM screen, and I've done it before, but that's a key thing. And the other thing is, like you said, if you're playing a line, if you haven't used Roll20 before, if you haven't used StreamYards before, or whatever you're doing, make sure you test these things out before you go live with them. Obviously you don't want to go into anything without any knowledge about how to use it, right? You want to make sure that it works, it tests out, and you want to make sure everybody, if you have other players online, that they're going to be able to hear you, you're going to be able to hear them, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a very obvious one. Yes.
Yeah. Go in, mess around with that VTT. Take, a couple hours, just go in, play with it, create stuff, delete it, make something different, blow it up, start over again a third time if you have to. And one thing I found, when you can, go wired.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Wireless is stupid for this.
I went in on a game and I was using a wireless headset and I could not get it to work. And this was partially because of my autism, but boom, I was out for the game. Thankfully, I was just a player, but I zoned out because it drained me so much trying to get this headset to work, and I went wired, and I haven't used wireless for this kind of stuff ever since.
All right, I have a few more follow-ups on that, but I think this segment needs to move on to the next question, so we're just going to do that, and if I have time to come back to those, I will. So the next primary question, we'll start with you, Malachi, this time, is what are common mistakes game masters make that can hinder the fun and enjoyment of the game? Now, this is for all game masters. It doesn't just have to be a new game master. So again, common mistakes game masters make that can hinder the fun and enjoyment of the game.
Well, one thing I had down is when you are so concerned about adhering to the lore of the setting, especially something like, say, Star Wars or the Forgotten Realms, number one, you're going to have people that come in and know everything. You got to bite that in the butt right away. Say, hey, this is my version. And at the same time, you're going to divert a little bit and you got to let things happen. If you have your own setting that you've been creating, players are going to come in. They're going to want to mess around a little bit. They might want to add something to it. You got to be flexible. Don't give people a hard no. Be at least willing to listen and negotiate. I have seen a player. He was running a game and he allowed patrons in, other players, to create, characters to give missions to other player characters. He got so frustrated with them ruining the setting, so to speak, that he shut the game down.
They brought in what?
Patrons. They had players creating patrons to give out missions to the other players. Kind of like how the Broasar does things.
Okay.
He just got so upset with everybody messing with his setting and changing things that he shut the game down. Completely.
seems weird, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, he had a bunch of players too, from what I remember. It's just, if you're gonna want to run a game, you're gonna want to open something like that up to the players. You're gonna have to be flexible, and
Yeah, players ruin everything. Look,
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't mean that in a negative way. Players
No.
ruin everything. So your flexibility comment is absolutely right. I guess my hard no is to the fact is, you mentioned something like when I run my Dragonlance games. No, you're not going to be an orc. There are no orcs on Dragonlance. That's just the setting. The setting trumps what you want.
Yeah, you gotta have, well, you gotta have those things like you said, like no orcs, no tieflings in Dragonlance. But let's say Star Wars timeline. Your players are going to affect that timeline. Don't expect you to have the exact same timeline as what Lucas had or the EU had. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, but I mean, Star Wars is so big that it's easy to not influence. You're never going to meet Darth Vader in my game. I mean, it's just. But okay, so let's see. What's a good follow-up question to that one? Okay. Is it okay for a game master to change the tone of a campaign? For example, start off as a Sparkle Pony high fantasy, but then they find themselves captured by the Mists of Ravenloft. And just for full disclosure, if you're in a D&D campaign of mine long enough, you will end up in Ravenloft. I don't care if you want to be there or not, you will. So, and I do the second edition version of it. So, yes. But I've heard people talk about we weren't meant to do this. We were playing this high fantasy, or we were playing this uplifting game, and now all of a sudden it's changed, and this isn't what I signed up for. It's like, whoa, you signed up to play Dungeons and Dragons. You don't know how the world could turn. What are your thoughts on that? So is it okay for a GM to change tone of a campaign?
If he's going to do it, I think he should foreshadow it beforehand. Let the players know that something's going to happen, if you can.
Can you give an example?
Oh.
Yeah, like, guys on the spot.
I disagree, actually.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't think you have to foreshadow. I think it's actually really awesome, and I love it when a campaign just shifts tone all of a sudden. And if it happens, like, tough luck. This is where the game's going now. And a lot of times, the players are like, "Oh shit!" Like I didn't. If it's done well enough, the players are like, "Oh damn, I didn't expect that." Like this is awesome. Now if you do it. You can do it wrong though, right?
Yeah.
Like you can do it in a wrong way. And if you do that, like they're not going to like, it could be really bad. Like the Mists of Ravenloft thing. I've done that many times. And the players know, some of the players are like, know what's going to happen. And some of the players don't. And when they learn what happens, they're really shocked and surprised that, oh shit, we went from this highfalutin fantasy world, forgotten ribs or whatever. And now we're in this dark, demented, gothic reality.
And you regret being the paladin now, don't you?
No, I can explain myself, and this can work. Like I said, foreshadowing. Say there, you got your player's home base or village. So and so disappeared. The blacksmith disappeared. You don't know what happened to him. Then a couple days later, somebody else disappears, and like, oh yeah, this like mist came in, and then they were gone.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to preface by saying that foreshadowing is not a bad thing. I'm just saying I don't think you have to do it to make a shift in tone or mood necessarily, right? Like I think it can be done abruptly, or you can do foreshadowing. In most cases, I think Malachi's probably right. Like if you foreshadow it like this, you build up to something, just like they do in the comic books, right? Like they're building up to the Phoenix Saga. Marvel, are you taking notes? Instead of just abruptly going into it, that's what made that kind of thing great, right?
Yeah.
And you can do that. Like, the player gets, a magic ring or a sword. Well, it just starts off as a sword that glows a little bit, and it's a +1 sword. And then it starts talking. And then it starts telling you to do things. And, we've all, and this is foreshadowing, right? Something that builds up to something larger in the campaign. And before you know it, that sword's actually turns the player into this demonic demigod, and he's trying to kill the rest of the party. And, so but that's foreshadowing, right? Like it gives the players time to be like, maybe this sword isn't a good idea. Maybe we should ditch this thing and go about our business, So yeah, foreshadowing, definitely not a bad tool. I was just saying, I don't think you have to shift the tone. And no, I don't think shifting the tone's a bad thing at all. I think it's great. You know,
So
yeah,
it's funny. I'm actually in the middle on that one, and I'm reading chat here, and chat's like, it could be okay, maybe not. And I think of like, well, what would make me angry? Well, I wouldn't get angry playing a game. I mean, you've played with me hopefully enough now, Cody, to kind of understand that I don't like clown shoes games. So if the
Sure.
game turns into something crazy gonzo clown shoes, I'm going to lose interest. I'm that person that wants the more serious, sci-fi. I want people at the table to be serious players, not just memes and jokes constantly. It's just that's my style. Other people are the exact opposite. And if you change the game from a serious, and again, people can say what they want about it, but a serious Ravenloft style game where everything dark is trying to eat you, and it's got some survival elements, and it's got horror elements, and you're always on edge, and then it turns into if you do that for one adventure, I'll be like, okay, nice change of pace, you got me. But if that's the tone, like all of a sudden now we're in Sparkle Pony Land, welcome, it's 5e, I'll be walking. Like, because I just don't enjoy games like that as a whole.
Yeah. And I think what you're bringing up is a bad shift in tone, right? Because if you establish this is going to be a serious game and that's the way you play it, it should be that way throughout. Now you can shift the genre,
sure,
you can shift the setting, but as far as like the actual mood and the tone of what we establish as we're playing as a group, and you completely change that, like if we go to Toontown in episode 10, like I'm probably going to be checking out depending on what game we're playing. I mean, it does depend on the game too. I mean,
so you're saying like you can go from say, and these are bad examples, but they're ones people understand. You can go from saying playing like in a Dragonland setting to Al-Qadim. Maybe I should just do Forgotten Realms. Forgotten Realms, Coromir, Al-Qadim, was it Karatur? So you can change the setting around, but just keep the tone generally same.
Yeah, absolutely. But even say you're doing like a dungeon crawl at the beginning and you do that for 10 sessions, then all of a sudden it turns into a murder mystery in the town. That's a fine tone shift. That's great. Or it turns into like an epic quest all of a sudden. You find an item in the dungeon and now you're on this epic quest adventuring around the whole world and it's all kinds of different themes. But yeah, you're right. The tone should not change, I don't think. Like you can have lighthearted moments here and there. You can have weird moments here and there. You can have things like that, but really you want to keep the tone the same. Otherwise it's really disjointing and it brings the players completely out of the immersion of the game, and it's not fun. That's a bad way to do it, in my opinion.
Okay, I agree. All right, well then let's do the main question back to you, Cody, which is what are common mistakes game masters make that can hinder the fun and enjoyment of the game?
I think a lot of new players, and this is an obvious one, but I think it needs to be addressed or new GMs, excuse me, that needs to be addressed if we do have any new GMs, is do not be, like Malachi touched on this a little bit, do not be inflexible with the players. Don't try to lead them by the nose all the time. Do not try to go directly what's in your adventure or on your notes or what have you. Like that is the worst. That is one of the worst things you could do as a GM, period. Don't do that. If the players do something that's completely, left field of what you thought, go with it, roll with it, start making shit up. Or here's some other advice. You can still use the railroad, right? Like if you plotted out a railroad and that's what you feel comfortable with, the players don't know that like what's in the right room is in the left room. If they go to the left, if they go off far to the left, it could still be what's on the right. I give that advice to new GMs all the time, is that doesn't mean that everything you planned is trash. You can still use that. You can just interject it somewhere else, and you might have to change it and morph it a little bit, but it's still the same basic idea. And you can still use that idea and you just bring it somewhere else. Right. But the players still feel like they have freedom and that you're not just leading them by the nose and that they're just reading or, that you're just sitting around having story time with whoever, GM Cody or whatever, like we're actually playing a role-playing game. And a role-playing game to me is that the players are the players in the story. They're the protagonist and they're making decisions. And those decisions are pretty much come with complete freedom, bounded by the rules and the physics of reality of whatever the game is, the setting. So yes, they should feel like they're having that freedom. And if they don't feel like they have that freedom, they're not going to have fun, right? They don't want to be led around the nose. So like if they feel like they're being led around the nose all the time, they're going to get really pissed off. So don't do that. And obviously, a lot of experienced players with a new GM are going to go with the flow too. Most respectful players understand, get the cues and nods where the adventure is supposed to go, and are just going to go with the flow, right? They're not going to be completely disagreeable. But sometimes players aren't going to get the hint and just go off somewhere that you didn't expect and do something totally left field that you did not expect. And you just need to be ready to improvise, need to be ready to bring in new ideas, but also don't throw out your old ideas, just recycle them.
So consequences is another thing. If the player characters do something really like, whoa, what just happened here? There are consequences for those actions, because a lot of times it's some murder hobo nonsense, or like you said, it's going in a completely different direction than you were planning on. Well, the stuff that was supposed to happen over here where they didn't go still happens. This is how I do my timeline stuff. Like, you can only be in so many places at one time, and I've got a bunch of machinations going on. So what is it that you're going to go after? Well, the other stuff is just continuing on. So there are always consequences for that. And nobody likes a jailbreak story. Everybody thinks they like it, but it's fun. It's just like playing the character that's got the secrets, like the Raceland character at a Dragonlance. It's never fun to have that character in the group. It works in novels. It doesn't work in groups. And the jailbreak story is the same thing. It works in the movies. It doesn't work in a group, because either it turns into Apple Dumpling Gang, or it's I'm old, or it's or they just die because, I'm sorry, there are guards there, and they're going to make an example of whatever.
Well, I think that's another thing as a new GM is another big mistake is you need to set yourself, or seem like you're setting yourself as the arbitrator and not the omnipresent God, right? You let the players do what they want, but there are consequences, as you said, right? And the dice fall, or at least they think the dice fall as they may. And you need to project that image that you're not out to get them. You're not out to help them. You're just there. You're just setting the scene. You're just the forces of nature setting all this in motion, and they're reacting to it. Right. So like, that's an important thing to remember. And a lot of new GMs go one way or the other a little too strongly. Even veteran GMs do it. I do it. We all do it. But really what you want there is the perfect balance of, I'm just the arbitrator. I am just setting things in motion, and you're reacting to the things. And I saw a lot of people here commenting that railroads are fine. Railroads are fun. Yeah, they are. There's nothing wrong with a railroad. What I'm saying though is railroads can be good, but you don't want it to seem like a railroad. So you can run a railroad, but you don't want it to seem like a railroad, right? I do this all the time, and the players don't even realize that they're being railroaded along.
A Heathen Dog just calls it the illusion of choice.
Exactly. That's what I use too. That's a perfect way to say it. The illusion of choice. That's, to me, like, that's ultimately what you want to go for every time. It's the illusion of choice. Now there's something. This is where I really wish we could have had somebody who's just a pure sandbox player in here that's probably bristling at everything that you just said. Because I generally agree with you, because I'm in the middle ground there, where it's like, I believe that I set up hooks, I set up the world and so forth, and there are limitations to that, but generally you get to act how you want and do what you want, and I just throw the consequences back at you. But there are some people, and I kind of see it in chat as well, it's like everything's random, everything is just whatever the players just decide. Sorry, but you're low level, the world kind of controls you to some extent. It's just like real life here. When you get your first job, might sound neat that you can do whatever you want, but the reality of the situation is you've got bosses, and you've got law, and you've got whatever around you. So at the same time, I don't like a pure railroad. If I know I'm being railroaded, like, we must do this, we must do that, we must do the next thing. Like you said, I play along a little bit because that's the responsibility of a good player. But at some point, I want to control my player. And this comes to the most egregious thing. You guys didn't say it directly, but you led to this. But let me go even more egregious than you. And I've seen this before. Playing the characters for the players. Yeah,
I mean, unless that player isn't at the table, do not tell a player what he or she should do or is doing. Well, barring being charmed or whatever,
I agree with that to an extent. I will help out a new player.
Sure,
but
helping, yeah.
But I will not tell them what to do. But if I've seen plenty of new players get frozen up to the table. Nobody's helping the player out. So I'm like, okay, look, here's some things you can do. And I'll give them a bunch of choices.
Yeah, but that's not playing it for the player. I'm talking. I've literally sat at a table to say, okay, you're gonna do this, and wait, what?
Yeah. No, I don't like that at all. I don't like it when the GM tells me what my character is doing. I want to tell the GM what the character is doing. And yeah, that is an egregious thing that a lot of new GMs do. You're absolutely right.
Here's another one that sorry, go ahead.
I was going to touch on the sandbox thing real quickly. I actually, to be honest with you, that's my preferred style of play as a player, is the sandbox. I love to just give me a setting, give me a bunch of stuff to do, and I'll just go make my fun. That I love that kind of game. But I also, can adapt as a player. So like if somebody is running a very railroady game, I can adapt, that's fine. But yeah, it's just whatever style. That's another thing as a new GM, you have to recognize what the players like. And that's something you're just going to learn as you're running the game. You're not going to know right off the bat, unless you know these people already and have played a lot of games with them. You're not going to know exactly what all the things they like. So if it's a completely new group, you're just going to kind of have to, and this just goes for veteran GMs too. You're just going to have to fish around and find what all the players like and then feed that into the game. So
we got to end this segment here momentarily, but I've got a couple little minor ones I want to throw at you. Other things that especially new Dungeon Masters do, but I've even seen it I saw it at a convention game and it drove Bob and I almost left the table. The DM PC solves everything.
Right.
That is a rough one.
So how does that hinder the fun, and how obviously besides just not do it, how can you get around? How can you have a DM PC that's effective?
You don't want your NPCs to take the spotlight away from the PCs. You want the NPCs to be background characters. They can help the PCs. You can. I use NPCs. I don't have GM PCs. I have NPCs. I use NPCs as that's kind of the person you can talk to. That's me in the game giving you advice. So they're like, "Hey, what should I do? What do you think? Oh, maybe you should do this or that or whatever." So it's kind of my way to give the players some hints. Or things
the way
like
Bear
that.
is running Esmeralda, I think, is awesome. She gives us just enough information to keep us moving along, to kind of prod us that we got stuff to do, but doesn't solve any of the important stuff for us.
I wish we had Bear on here tonight because he is the master of NPCs. He's the best GM I've ever seen with NPCs, just period. I've never seen anybody better that can bring personality, voice, and make these people seem like real people, but at the same time, they don't steal the spotlight from the player characters.
Or they're there for only like 2 minutes, and you're like, that's still memorable, Yep.
Yeah, and you remember those NPCs forever. He's the master of creating NPCs. So I wish we had him on here tonight.
Me too, because we have a 4th spot. But with that said, Malachi, any final comments? It's time to end this segment. I got to read a couple of super chats and then move on to the next segment. But any final commentary on that?
Just on the DMPC, I think Cody nailed it. He's just got, or that Bear handles it really well with Esmeralda in the game. And I even take
Esmeralda,
or what's her name?
Esmeralda.
It's been how long? Shush. But I've been taking it farther back than that, where it's been more of a body for the party, so I could throw certain things at them, especially in 3rd edition.
And it's really cool because, with her, she's younger. And instead of being like, oh, I know what's ahead. No, she's like, I see it in the stars, but that's it. Like, I see in the stars that we're at the right spot, or I see in the stars that something fortuitous is about to happen, but it's not what. We still have complete freedom of choice. She doesn't say, go to the left. And I think that's a very subtle difference there, where it's just like, hey, you're on the right track, or maybe you guys need to do something without directing the action, so to speak. So, all right. I think that's going to end our first segment. We got the next segment, the next video. We'll have a couple of new questions, some new follow-ups. Again, this isn't the end-all, be-all of everything game mastering. There are 24 questions. Cody picked 8, plus I didn't even go through half the follow-ups I had there. So there's a lot more discussion we can have on this in the future, and you can let us know in the chat and comments if you'd like us to attack this again. Of course, please like, subscribe, and share. I shouldn't have put that up yet because that's going to be my marker for when I clip the video, because I have to do super chats right now. So first things first, on Rumble, since the weird thing about Rumble is I can put up Rumble comments on the screen. I can't put up the Rumble rants. It doesn't make sense. Rumble, fix that. Love you, Rumble, but you got to fix that. Says Daramouth says, hello, fellow Rumbler. Hope you're having a great night and even better weekend. Have fun. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, even if it was just a drive-by. I don't know if you're still lurking there, but I appreciate you coming by, and thank you for watching us on Rumble. Where's the other super chat? And then, of course, Hungar the Star Variant pops in. I love you, I love you too, baby. You're my boo. All right, there we go. Oh, my God, I feel dirty now. So thank you for the $2 there, Hunger. By the way, just so folks know, if we make $100 throughout the night, there will be a giveaway at the end during segment, what I call segment 5, which is pretty much after all this is done. Only the members get to see that. There were a couple of comments I starred because I just wanted, I'm trying not to star too many comments because it takes a lot of time unless they're super chatted, but they're just such good comments to put on here. Number one GM problem, finding players and keeping reliable players. Yes, especially if you move around the world.
Or you deal with COVID variants.
Deal with what?
COVID variants.
COVID variants. I mean, at a game store, this is definitely one. You'll get somebody shows up once and then doesn't show up again. Get somebody shows up a couple times. And there's a lot of hit and miss on there. That's why I'm a firm believer in having your group of friends. What's up, Cody?
Number one problem for me, right there. That's always been the number. Well, not always, but nowadays it's the number one problem. And I think it's just from getting older. But yeah, finding and keeping reliable players is the hardest thing for me as a GM nowadays. So yeah, if you have that, thumbs up to you, because you've accomplished. To me, that's like mission number one: find reliable and good players. Really difficult.
Oops. Lord Mateus says they become rules layers. This is about game masters. Game masters as players, they become rules layers. I see that a lot. It's like, no, that's not actually how that works. It's like, let the guy run the game the way he wants to run the game and talk about afterwards, unless he's just making a blatant mistake, like, how the game should run. But even then, what I would do, and tell me what you think about this if you were the game master, is Cody is running the game, and I'll be like, Cody, it's supposed to be a +2, not a +1. And if he's like, oh, I made a mistake, cool. If he's like, nope, it's a +1 for whatever reason, doesn't matter. He wants it to be a +1. There's extraneous circumstances I don't know about. He runs the rule differently. I STF you and move on.
Yeah. Yep. I had a DM when I ran 5e, and if I was unsure on a rule, I double check with him. And every time I did that, he would end with, unless Malachi is changing it for this game.
Yeah, fair. Like sometimes I'll just point out, because like when we were doing our AD&D 2nd edition game, the guy just didn't remember a lot of the rules. He'd played so much 3 and 5 that he forgot a lot of the 2e rules. And most of the time he's like, oh, is that the rule? Okay, we'll go with it. Sometimes he's like, nope, I'm doing it this way. And okay, as long as I know, we're good. Keep moving. Like I have zero issues with somebody trying to figure it out without taking a lot of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't have a problem with a player calling me out on a rule. I don't have it happen very often anymore, but I used to have it happen a lot in the past. Now, back in the day, I was kind of a rules lawyer myself, but nowadays I'm too old to remember the rules. So I'm just making shit up all the time, and I think people just expect that from me. If you play in my game, I'm just making shit up anyway. So now I generally try to stick to the spirit of the rules, but occasionally I'm just like, okay, it's, I don't spend a lot of time looking up a rule if I can't remember. I'm just like, it's a +2. Let's go.
But I wanted to have a +4 because I did. I'm sorry.
But I will say that I try to stick to the rules. And if I keep note of that in my head, or hopefully do, and then after the game, I'll look it up, or if somebody brings it up after the game, or even if somebody interrupts me, it's like, hey man, it's actually a +4. I'm like, oh, is it? Okay, cool. We'll go with that. +4. And, you know, I'm like, and then after the game, we'll have a discussion about it. Maybe like, where did you see that? Like in the player's handbook, or what page is that on? Like, so I can look that up and we can, you know, do it differently. Or maybe I want to change the rule. So it's like, okay, well, we're going to play it this way for now on. I just think it's better for everybody. Is everybody in agreement with that? Okay, cool. Let's move on. You know, but generally I'm always trying to keep the game moving. I don't want to stop and look through books and all that shit. But I don't have a problem at all with rules lawyers. Actually, I think they're helpful. You know?
It depends if they overdo it or not. Yeah.
It can be annoying.
Crafty says, Legion of Myth, believing that you as the GM are responsible for the other people having fun. This is a soapbox issue for him, so I just put it up here for him. You're responsible for creating an environment where fun can happen. And I do think that's an important distinction. The game master is not responsible for your fun. Like, now, if a bad game master is a bad game master. But, you know, so, you know, a lot of times they just need more practice. Some people just aren't cut out to be game masters. They just aren't.
This is true too.
And that's not a bad thing. It's not an insult. Sometimes I wonder about myself. Like the last couple of games I ran, I just feel I've not done well. I'm almost like, I don't know if I want to be a dungeon master or game master ever again, because I haven't met my own standards with that. But I'm not there responsible for your fun, but I am responsible for making sure, since I am kind of leading I am the world, so to speak. I'm presenting the world. I am responsible for providing you the ability to have fun.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to read any more of these. We've got to move on, except for the super chat. Thank you very much. A Raven says, keep up the good work. Liking the new format. My online group has a good, reliable core of 3 players. Plus, we always have an extra 2 to 3 that play. That's all I love. To me, 5 is minimum, 8 is maximum. I prefer 6. 6 is like my sweet spot, 6 plus me. I love running a game for 6 people and me and just having a great time. So thank you for the $10, sir. Any final comments on this?
No, just awesome that you have a good, reliable group. That's great. You know, that's an ultimate goal that we all should try to achieve. And it takes a long time to get that. And I've had good groups in the past and sadly do not anymore, but hopefully get that back sometime.